Our veteran today is being sponsored by Representative Chuck Strom. Representative Strom, you're recognized to introduce the Veteran of the Week.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, members of the House. I'd like to, actually, it's a great honor to be able to introduce Lieutenant Robert Taylor, a dear friend of our family and just a wonderful man who has served our country for many, many years. We have a citation for him.
Clerk will read.
Whereas the Oklahoma House of Representatives holds in the highest esteem and deepest appreciation Veteran Robert Ernest Taylor for the sacrifices and contributions he has given in order to preserve the freedoms and privileges Americans hold so dear. And whereas Robert Ernest Taylor served in the United States Air Force from November 1943 to July 1970, where he first volunteered for the Army Air Corps Aviation Cadet program in 1943, and graduated as officer and pilot on August 4th, 1945, 10 days before World War II ended. And whereas Robert Ernest Taylor was a B-26 pilot in combat crew training for Korea at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia in 1953, when he continued to Sheppard Air Force Base in Texas as a B-25 pilot navigator training missions, then moved on as a MATS traffic officer at the Burtonwood Air Force Base in England. And whereas from 1961 to 1970, Robert Ernest Taylor served as a B-52 aircraft commander at the Sheppard Air Force Base, Texas, and Pease Air Force Base, New Hampshire, then flew 169 B-52 combat missions over Vietnam in 1968 and 1969. And whereas Robert Ernest Taylor retired from the United States Air Force in Sheppard Air Force Base, Texas, as Lieutenant Colonel, and is a highly decorated veteran receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross, Air Medal with an 8 oak leaf cluster, Air Force Commendation Medal, the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal, Vietnam Service Medal with 1 Bronze Service Star, Combat Readiness Medal, Air Force Outstanding Unit Award, Small Arms Expert Marksmanship Ribbon, and the Air Force Longevity Service Award. And whereas the state of Oklahoma takes great pride in honoring Robert Ernest Taylor as Veteran of the Week for his service in World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and the Cold War. Now, therefore, pursuant to the motion of Representative Chuck Strom, the Oklahoma House of Representatives extends to Robert Ernest Taylor sincere congratulations and directs that this citation be presented.
Mr. Taylor, we'd like to award you this flag. It was flown over the Capitol. Thank you.
Would you like to say something? Lieutenant Colonel, would you like to address the body?
Please be seated. I was told that there was 3 B's for making a speech. Be brief, be to the point, and be seated. So we started with the be seated first. Well, I would like to tell you just a little bit about me. I was not one of these fellas that saw an airplane and, boy, that's what I want to do. I graduated from high school and I decided I didn't want to get drafted, and I found out the Army Air Corps would let me fly airplanes. And I didn't know anything about them yet. But the first flight I flew was in 1944 in a Piper Cub. And when we landed that day, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to fly. And I got to fly the biggest bomber that we've had, the 8-engine B-52. My boys said one day, said, "Dad, what would you say if I was going to Canada if I had got a draft number low enough that I was going to be drafted?" I said, "Well, I'd be very disappointed because I'm serving, and I hope that none of you that do not want to serve, that my time of 27 years will suffice for the whole family." Now, many of you don't know what the Cold War was. That was where we flew 24-hour missions, and we had potential nuclear bombs on board. with targets in Russia at any time in that 24 hours if we got the message to go. 2 of my missions, I only flew 3 of them because everybody in the SAC at that time got. I only flew 3 of them, and 2 of them were only 2 pilots on a 24-hour mission. It was trying, of course, but it was needed at that time. And flying the 8-engine airplane that I was flying, I was happy not only to do it for service to the Air Force, but for myself achieving that accomplishment. I don't know what else I can tell you that.
We're going to let you lead us in the pledge.
Yeah.
We're going to have you lead us in the pledge.
Yeah.
Members and guests of the gallery, please rise as you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.